Recently, I've realized one of my greatest failures as a young man. I don't read, or at least not as much as I should. It may sound dramatic to characterize this as a failure, but I truly believe that it is. I mean, how much more of an advantage do young men who read have over those who don't? A quick Google search led me to these numbers. Men on average in the US read just above 13 minutes a day. In 2018, a quarter of people surveyed by the Pew Research Center reported that they haven't even read part of a book in the past year. The wealthiest among us are more than 3 times as likely to pick up a book than those making less than 30 grand a year. 54% of US adults read below a 6th grade level. Forbes estimates that this costs the US economy $2.2 trillion annually, equivalent to around 10% of our GDP. And these numbers aren't stagnant either. They're rising. Today, in 2022, you could approach 2 people on the streets, and statistically, one of them reads below the level of your 6th grade cousin. Of course, these numbers are still much better than they were a couple centuries ago. In the Dark Ages, only a small sliver of the male population was considered literate. This was primarily due to the lack of accessible literature at the time. It wasn't until the 1440s that the printing press revolutionized the world. During this time, only the elites could read. But it wasn't just that only the elites could read, but they could also manipulate literature. Kings and priests of the time invoked the name of God to control the populace. After all, they were the only ones that held access to the scriptures, thus being the only ones that held access to God's supposed commands. Refusing to translate the Bible into any other language but Latin, they were able to restrict who could read its contents. Leaders of the day could claim that the book said whatever they wished it to say. An institution that was supposed to help humanity enslaved humanity. And I do not pretend that human nature among the elites is any different today than it was just a few hundred years ago. Now, today, literature is accessible. Yet still, over half of the United States population cannot read at a complex level. Are we not handing over control to those above us by not reading? As I stated before, the wealthiest in society are more than 3 times as likely to pick up a book than those who are living in poverty. Everyone in the West has equal access to books, yet still, some choose not to pick them up. We are delegating access to knowledge to the elites, this time by choice. Now, I do not pretend to be living in poverty, but to me, it seems that to those who are, books are an outstretched hand, waiting to be grabbed hold of. Now, for me personally, I used to be much better at reading. Books used to be able to hold my attention for 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. But the more I've gotten into listening to podcasts and lectures, I've found myself slipping from reading. I found it more efficient to put a podcast in my ears while I do some other task than to give my full attention to a book. But I found that I don't learn as much if my full attention is not given to the thing that I'm trying to learn. It is for these reasons that I'm challenging myself to read daily, and not only that, I'm going to post a short in my YouTube Shorts feed every day, briefly describing what I'm reading that day. I ask you to hold me accountable, and maybe join the challenge yourself. I already have a book that I'm halfway through. I've just been struggling to finish. And I have a few books that I keep picking up from the bookstore, leaving on my shelf and not reading. So hopefully this challenge will help me achieve my goals and go through that list of books. Thank you.